Can you trust someone you can't see? I bet you we can't, because he's his word, right? He is the word.
Well, he's everything that we see.
And he is everything that we see. That's right. So these poor people here, this is what their land is going to look like. This would be the Negev. I do not want to live in, don't make me live in the Negev. I don't want to live in the Negev.
Not right now. Not lots like this.
It looks like the moon.
I'm going to wait till they make the deserts bloom.
Yeah. So from the Negev to the coasts of the north, Yaakov Zikron. This is where a German bunch of Christians that are from Germany that have been there since after World War II, and they've just been laying their lives down for the Jewish people, and they take in Ephraimites like us every year, a couple times a year, and they go over there for about a 6-week period. And they put them up in this town, Yaakov Zikron. It just really looks cool.
It is cool.
What is Zikron?
You've been there? I have not been there. They'll put you to work. If you want to volunteer, go over there and live with them for 6 weeks. They'll put you up. You get yourself over there, they'll put you up, they'll take care of you, they'll put you to work, and Joel, you would love it.
All right.
Okay? All right.
Sign me up.
He won't come back.
Yeah. Okay, so eventually, at some point in time, all these groups of grapes, all these tribes are all going to merge, all these two houses are going to merge, all of these two houses, that sounds like an oxymoron, are going to merge into one. Kind of look like this, you know? We could get when we do that, it's going to kind of look like this. Eventually, it's going to look like a zipper. They're going to fold into one. It's not going to be two sticks like this, one stick on top of another, as much as it's going to be like this. Okay, eventually, we're not there yet, but we're well on our way. Okay, so believe it or not, chapters 12 through 14 deals with only 3 commandments. 1 through 3. Worship no other gods. Don't get involved with idols, and don't use God's name in vain. Okay? So this is where we're going to start. And Steve, you want to read for us today? Sure. Deuteronomy 12, 20 and through 28.
When the Lord your God has enlarged your territory as he promised you, and you crave meat and say, I would like some meat, then you may eat as much of it as you want. If the place where the Lord your God chooses to put his name is too far away from you, you may slaughter animals from the herds and flocks the Lord has given you, as I have commanded you. And in your own towns you may eat as much of them as you want. Eat them as you would gazelle or deer. Both the ceremonial unclean and the clean may eat. But be sure you do not eat the blood, because the blood is the life. You must not eat the life of the meat. You must not eat the blood. Pour it onto the ground like water. Do not eat it, so that it may go well with you and your children after you, because you will be doing what is right in the eyes of the Lord. But take your consecrated things and whatever you have vowed to give, and go to the place the Lord will choose. Present your burnt offerings on the altar of the Lord your God, both the meat and the blood. The blood, your sacrifices must be poured beside the altar of the Lord your God, that you may eat the meat. Be careful to obey all these regulations I am giving you, so that it may always go well with you and your children after you, because you will be doing what is good and right in the eyes of the Lord your God.
Okay, a couple things. Verse 25, when you do what is right in the eyes of the Lord, and in verse 28, when you do what is good and right in the sight of the Lord for your children, that it may go well with you and your children after you. Wow, there's a blessing right there. Did you recognize it as a blessing? Mm-hmm. If you're going to do what's right, it will go well with you and who?
Your children.
And your children. It's kind of an important distinction there, huh? It'll go right with you and your children. There's a difference between eating meat and sacrificing an animal that is made up of meat. There's a difference, okay? There's very much of a difference. You may eat within your gates as much as your heart's desire. That's what 21 through 27 stated, okay? There's nothing wrong with eating meat. But when you kill that animal, it's not a sacrifice. Okay? I want to eat, when you say, let me eat meat because you long to eat meat, you may eat as much as your little heart desires. It would appear that Egyptians were vegetarians. Remember, these people lived down in Egypt for 230 years, right? 215 years, 230 years, something like that. They lived in Egypt, and Egyptians were vegetarians. They probably didn't eat a whole lot of meat down there. Okay? Animals to the Egyptians were seen as gods. Okay? In the wilderness, the Israelites only ate meat, consecrated as a sacrifice when they ate it. It was consecrated as a sacrifice. So here they're about to go into this land. They're going to spread out. Now what are they going to do? When you kill an animal because you're hungry, what's for supper, and your kids are walking around going, what's for dinner? What's for dinner? I'm hungry. When you kill that animal, it's not a sacrifice. You're just killing the animal to fix dinner, okay? I know this sounds minutiae, but it's important that we get it in our heads, okay? The private enjoyment of meat was permitted within their gates. It's okay. Okay, that's what it's not, but just, he says, just don't eat the blood. So when we did communion this morning, was that blood? No, that was wine. It wasn't blood, and it didn't become blood, and it didn't become flesh. We weren't doing a Catholic thing. It wasn't a, okay, that was his body that was broken for us, and the wine, that he turned water into wine at the wedding, remember? That's in celebration of, we're not drinking his blood. We're celebrating, if you will.
It's a symbol.
Symbol.
Symbols of his body.
Symbol, right. Make sure, he's saying, make sure that your offerings and your sacrifices are designated at the right place, okay? So, where's the designated place today?
Wendy's.
Wendy's, and I don't think so. The designated place today is right where you are. Take a look around, just look down at yourself. Look at your hands. Look at your heart. This is you. The designated place is right where you are, because anywhere you are, there you are.
You gotta be where you're at.
You gotta be where you're at. Just be comfortable where you're at. The only acceptable sacrifice today is sacrifice of praise in order to honor him and to worship him and to thank him. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now watch this little guy. This next one is very important. I like this little kid. Oh, he says, now I get it. God is where his spirit is, and today his spirit is in me. If we can get that concept, so wherever you are, think about this, wherever you are, Sheila, wherever you are, God's there. Does that make you God? No. That means that the Spirit of the living God is living inside of you, because you opened up your heart to him and he said, I want to have you come in and help you with those stuff, Sheila, right? That's what this is all about. It's not hard and it's not scary. If this little kid can figure it out, by golly, I can figure it out. Okay. Why? And once again, 15:19, where we ended up last week, and 20 and 25. Why would Moses repeat this? Does it point to the fact that the final sacrifice would be offered at the place where God's name is? Remember, Yeshua, the sacrifice offerings for peace, for sin, for trespass, the burnt offering, grain offering, they're all culminated in Yeshua. He is the final sacrifice, like Myra pointed out this morning. The sacrifice for Yod-Heh-Vav is to be done only at a specific location. He chose to have his sacrifice, lay his life down for Sonia and Bob and Angie in Jerusalem, not in Cincinnati. Verse 29, 31. Help me.
The Lord your God will cut off before you the nations you are about to invade and dispossess. But when you have driven them out and settled in their land, and after they have been destroyed before you, be careful not to be ensnared by inquiring about their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? We will do the same. You must not worship the Lord your God in their way, because in worshiping their gods, they do all kinds of detestable things the Lord hates. They even burn their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods. See that you do all that I command you. Do not add to it or take away from it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Huh? Okay. When God cuts off these nations and that you're going to dispossess them and you're going to displace them, they're moving out and you're moving in, don't say, well, oh look, they left this behind. Look at this little idol. Isn't this cute? Let's just put him up here on the... No. No. We are not to worship God the way the Canaanites that he was throwing out of the land worship their gods. Yes?
I think that's interesting because, you know, sometimes people could say, well, if they do sacrifices of their children to their gods, maybe we can do that too.
Exactly.
You know?
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Now, think about all of our abortion bills, and that's exactly what we're doing. Right?
Different motivation, but still murder.
Yeah. That would be taking away their land under false pretenses if they went in there and started worshiping their gods the way, their gods, in the way they did them. It would be a false motive. That would be terrible. This is an example as to why Jews can't follow a Catholic Jesus. This is a perfect example of why Jews can't follow a Catholic Jesus. They think he's another God. They think he's a false God. Okay? It's not going to happen. All right? They think he's another God. All right, so let's say it another way. Let's say it this way. Let's try it this way. Maybe this is more comfortable. The reason you, the Israelites, are replacing them as occupants, them, the pagans, is so that the land will be rid of worshiping idols. There were idols they were worshiping. I want you to get that. I want you to get this picture of this. Israel, before the Israelites came, was a land full of idol worship. Anybody name some of the gods that they worship, that the Canaanites worship? Molech, Ashtoreth, Baal. There's a whole bunch of them. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them we're not even aware of. We're not saying them, and we're just not to worship them, but just for educational purposes.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You know, when I went to the Tikal pyramids, you know, in a mission trip, and when we were there were so many sacrifices in that place, and you could just feel it, you know, in your spirit. I mean, it was such a heaviness.
The atmosphere was heavy with it.
The atmosphere was just,
Yeah.
you know, it was beautiful to see those pyramids, but the atmosphere was just...
Have you ever gotten on an airplane and you've gone from the place where you live and the place where your world makes sense, and you go to a different place, even a different city, even St. Louis or a different city? I mean, but the atmosphere is totally different. You get off the plane and go, ooh, what's going on here? I mean, do you ever have that kind of a feeling? Yeah, because demonic spirits have control over areas. What's it called? It's called jurisdiction is the word I'm looking for. There's like a jurisdiction going on there, which is why it's really important to stand up and take ground for God. You help kind of clear out the fuzzy wuzzies in the area.
It's also why we need to be careful of familiar spirits, because they become so familiar to us that we don't recognize them with somebody else coming in mind.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, here's my little kid again. He goes, oh, now I get it. Yeah, I get it. We're supposed to worship God. We're not. We aren't supposed to worship God like the pagans worship their gods.
And if they did, God would treat them like pagans.
Yeah. We're not supposed to worship God like the pagans or the God of the pagans. We're not supposed to do that. Okay? If everybody got it, say I got it. Okay, I got it. All right. Now, we're going to talk about some problems here. Don't add to or subtract from the commandments. It's a simple math problem. Judaism and Christianity have a math problem when it comes to the commandments. They have added to and taken away. Really? Okay. It's kind of like, you know, the second grade teacher, the third grade teacher. I need 10 commandments. Okay? And I only have 6 of them. How many more do I need? Huh? 4? Okay. Well, let's just take a look. See if this makes sense. Okay. 1, honor your father and your mother. Christianity does that. They talk about that.
Yeah.
Don't murder. They talk about that.
Yes.
Don't commit adultery. They talk about that.
Yes.
Don't steal. They talk about that. Don't lie and don't covet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're doing pretty good. Okay, let's go over. Don't worship any other gods. Don't make any idols. Think of Catholic Church and all the idols that they. I mean, they do. They carry Mary around on a platform. Do they not?
Yeah.
Well, that's an idol.
Yeah.
They put people in stained glass windows. I mean, saints. You know that they've. I don't know. I'm not picking on that. I'm just stating a fact. Don't misuse the name of God. We call him Jesus instead of Yeshua. We call him God instead of Yahuwah. You know what I mean? I don't know. Keep the Sabbath day holy.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, they just kind of have a problem. We just kind of have a problem. Anyway, so if the Torah was ever in its whole lifespan of forever, if it was ever valid and true, then it's always valid and true. It wasn't valid and true back then and not valid and true today,
Right.
is it?
Not if forever is forever.
Not if forever is forever, then it's always valid and true. And with the first century, Judaism had several branches of Judaism. One of them was Messianic. They were Jews who believed that Yeshua was Messiah. Others were the rabbinic guys. These are the guys with all the oral laws they read into. The zealots. These are the ones who wanted to kill everybody. They're the ones who died on Masada, okay, in 70 A.D. And then the Essenes. These are guys who decided, well, we aren't going to get married. Well, they kind of petered out, if you will, because they didn't have children. So after a couple of centuries, they weren't there. Okay, they were very monastic, if you will. So here, by the 4th century, the Gentiles were beginning to outnumber the Jews, and they started subtracting from the Torah as the emerging church and this emerging religion called Christianity started growing and spreading, and it went into Catholicism, right? All right. Well,
Saw that.
talks to me like people were starting to erase things out of the Torah, or add things to the Torah. I'm not feeling a whole lot of feedback here.
Yeah, you're right, yeah, that's what I read. Yes.
All right. Christianity subtracted Torah law from their religious practices.
Yeah, that's right.
They did. For Christians, it's simple to us. This is our, and I'm not. This is just what happened. Okay, it's not that anybody was terrible, awful, no good, very bad. This is just what has happened down through the centuries.
But there were 2 Christian groups.
I know. I know. Hang on just a second. What is simple to us as Christians? Oh shoot! I just messed that up, didn't I?
Spoiler.
What have I done? What have I hit the wrong arrow? Doggone it. Let me see. This one. And then this one. There we go. What's simple to us, we know that Yeshua is the Messiah of Israel. Do we not? We know that. Christians back then knew that. We know that Yeshua is Yod He Vav He, manifested in the flesh, and he's sent from the Father. We know that, right? Anybody not know that? All right. We know that Yeshua laid down his life and redeemed us, and he paid the penalty for our sin. And we know that Yeshua brought back the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, to dwell within us again, as it did in the garden before Adam and Eve sinned. That was the whole point. It's not so simple for the Jewish people, at least for the Jews who know the Tanakh well and not the New Testament. Why is it hard for them to grasp? What's the problem about Yeshua? Here. Amongst the Jews, Jesus is not considered divine. He's not a divine being. Therefore, all holidays which have a connection to the life of Jesus are not part of the Jewish life and or practice. Like, for example, Christmas, Easter, Lent, Advent, Palm Sunday. These all have to do with connections with Baal worship.
With what?
Baal.
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 Yeah.
If Baal is God, then worship him. But if Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is God, worship him. That's what Elijah said, right? Well, Constantine, we've got to know this. Constantine in the 3rd century, 4th century, in the 300s, he kind of combined pagan stuff with Torah stuff, Christian stuff, and stuff that these Christians were believing, and he kind of combined them. It was convenient. But at the same time, he was doing away with anything that was Jewish. Anything, the Jewish holidays, the Sabbath, the Torah, he started forbidding it. And it just has gotten handed down in Christianity to us down to this very day. Is there a difference? Is there a different teaching today than what the writers of the Gospels taught or what Paul taught, or is there just a big, huge misunderstanding? We have this big, huge misunderstanding that has just filtered down to the thing. Any comments?
They say Jesus became our Sabbath rest, so we don't need to keep the
So we don't need to keep the Sabbath. Yeah. Lawrence?
One of the things is in both the Jewish and in the Christian, there have always been two sets. Those that are of the good seed of Christ and those are the bad seed of Satan. And that's been true, and that's always been the case in both cases. We've had Jews that have known Jesus and
Sure.
Accepted him, like Paul. Paul knew the Jewish stuff real good,
Yeah.
but until he
That-
had Christ in his heart.
That's the nice thing. That's the nice thing about ignorance. Ignorance is always curable. If we're ignorant of something, it just means that we don't know about it. But once the truth kind of comes in and we're looking at it, now we get a choice. We either can accept it or we can reject it. But truth is just kind of does that. It just kind of sits there. Kind of sits there and stares at you. And you either accept it or you reject it. It's your choice. But you live with the consequences of either choice, right? There it is. Boom. Paul was a very educated man. That's why God sent him to the Gentiles. We'll get into that more later. But that's why he sent him. He was a Torah. That guy knew the Torah inside and out, but he did, like the Lord said, he didn't have Christ until Christ kind of went and knocked him down one day and just kind of, let me introduce why are you persecuting me? Let me introduce myself to you. And he changed the whole world. He didn't start the Christian religion, he changed the world. Okay, he gave everybody an opportunity. But he certainly was not doing away with the Torah. Okay, Christmas, celebrating Jesus' birthday on the 25th of December, or on the first Sunday after the spring equinox, celebrating Easter, that was not Paul's idea. I hate to tell you that wasn't. Oh, sorry. Somebody had a hand up?
Oh, there's a fellow named Ken Johnson who studied all the just ancient manuscripts and stuff, and so he said, like, the first 200 years, they all agreed. These are the people who knew Jesus, John and everybody, and their kids and their grandkids. So about 200 years when everybody was gone, and it was watered down from the generations. That's when doctrine started to change, and people started to add and stuff. But prior to that, people had known Paul, and they'd known all of those people, and everything, their doctrines were just the same year after year.
Boom, boom, boom. And that's why, can you see why he says, I want you to hand this down to your children?
Yes, exactly.
Because pretty soon you get your 3 generations down.
Yeah.
And then, whoop.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly right. That's what we found out. We were trying to figure out Daniel and Ezekiel. And it's exactly right, where a lot of things were added right at the time of Constantine.
He said, throw that one out, throw that one out, throw that one. He threw most of it out, and he kept a little bit of it.
We saw an interesting documentary, a historical thing about Constantine, and one of the things he was up against is that when he became a Christian, Christianity was present in only 15% of this massive land
His massive empire.
that he had. So he was trying to do things to prevent revolt. And so,
Yeah.
and even the name Easter comes from Ashdari or
Yeah.
something, I'm not sure I
Yeah.
pronounced that right, which is and I don't want to even pronounce it right really, but that's a goddess, and all the traditions of bunnies and eggs and all that,
Yep.
Christmas trees, all that, so they did absolutely overlay Christianity onto all
On
those
some of
pagan
it.
holidays.
And
to keep
I know
us
at some point in time,
pagan
Jesus,
from-
the name of Jesus, there's a Greek god. It sounds a lot like that if you were to put all the letters together.
Well,
And he's
Yeah,
the god of
I-
healing.
yes.
He's the god of healing. Well, Jesus is a healer. So see how it doesn't take very long to go. If you're a pilot, you would understand it. Well, we drive a car. If you're backing out of the garage, you know, and you turn just a little bit wrong on an angle or something, pretty soon you're going to wind up in the middle of the front yard. You know what I mean? It doesn't take very much to get off a little bit, and then you're going the wrong direction. You know, and then it's all mixed up. Okay.
I did that one.
My sister Pat, when she was 16, and we lived in a house that it was an L shape. So the garage was here, the house was here, and the driveway went around this way. And I never laughed so hard all my life. Her assignment from my father was, okay, you have to back that car up out of the garage. So see how you do. She wound up, sure enough, right smack dab in the middle of the front yard. I didn't get to go with them that day on their practice driving because I was laughing so hard. Anyway, all right. So now we're going to find out why Yeshua was actually put on trial. Okay, this is what the people thought. 1 through 5, chapter 13. Beware of false prophets.
If a prophet, or one who foretells by dreams, appears among you and announces to you a sign of wonder, and if the sign or wonder spoken of takes place, and the prophet says, let us follow other gods you have not known, and let us worship them, you must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. The Lord your God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all your heart and with all your soul. It is the Lord your God you must follow, and him you must revere. Keep his commands and obey him. Serve him and hold fast to him. That prophet or dreamer must be put to death for inciting rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. That prophet or dreamer tried to turn you away from the Lord your God commanded you to follow. You must purge the evil from among you.
Okay. All right, so let's take a look. I almost heard the Shema in the midst of all of that. Did you hear? Teaching to your children. Anyway, this is kind of like being explained. So you think you can't be fooled? Look at this. Think you can't be fooled? Think again. I just fooled you. Look at that carefully a second time. Raise your hand when you see it. Don't say anything. Just raise your hand when you see it. Don't say anything. Just raise your hand when you see it. Raise your hand. Don't say anything. Just raise your hand when you see it.
What's wrong with
Okay, time's up.
I don't know what 6 words means. I don't know the
Right here.
context of that comment. But
Think you can't. I said what I said. The last thing I said was think you can't be fooled.
I know that's
Think
6
again.
words.
Think you can't be fooled. You just were. Read it again. Think you can't. Be See? See?
I was reading, yeah.
I was looking at the other
I thought
one
the
there.
scripture. I thought you were talking about the
Yeah.
scripture.
Think you can-
Oh well, that is good though, yeah.
They are crashing. What's the
Nice.
Isn't that funny?
It's a W.
That's our autocorrect.
It's a double U.
That's
Yeah.
our autocorrect.
Yes, you have autocorrect in your brain. It's amazing. It is amazing.
deal? That is amazing.
Yeah. All right. If this kind of sign is an oath, miracle, oath, and a wonder is a mofet. It's a display of God's power. If it's possible for a sign or what, signs and wonders are not necessarily criterion for true prophecy. Can signs and wonders be lying signs and wonders? Can they possibly
Yeah.
be?
Yeah.
Give me an example of a lying sign and a wonder. Think Egypt. Yeah.
The snakes.
Huh?
They're snakes. They, the magicians threw down their staffs, they became snakes as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hard to fake that.
Yep. Hard to fake that.
Lying signs.
Lying signs and wonders. Okay. So, false Christ, Yeshua said false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders so as to lead many astray if possible, even the elect. See, I've told you beforehand. He's warning us as well, right? Yeshua said the most important commandment is to love God, and the second is like that, love your neighbor. Hearing and doing, shmaing, hearing and doing. We know that shema means to hear and to do. These two will keep you from following false Christs and prophets. Shmaing is probably one of our biggest protections today in the days that we're living in. Okay? And why put that back in? Ten Commandments brings us right back to that. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Okay, for Christians, it's not so simple. Moses, for Christians, Moses is used primarily as a reference or a history book containing laws of Judaism. The Old Testament is a collection of stories for Sunday school teachers to teach the story, the basics of what happened in the Old Testament, right? And for Christians, the law I dropped a line down here. The law has been done away with and replaced with grace. For Jews, it is simple. Moses said, if a prophet comes and says that the laws of Moses are done away with, don't listen to him. Kill him. Can you see how things start lining up here? Okay? Don't listen to one who comes to start a new religion and does away with Moses. That's what Jews say. Can you see this?
There's truth in it.
There's truth in it. Yes, there's truth in it. Yeah. So did Jesus come to start a new religion? No. He didn't. Did Paul? No. No.
Susan, it's that same thing you said in Matthew chapter 5, as we read earlier, when Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount.
Mm-hmm.
In verse 17 it says, "Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets.
Exactly right.
I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill." Meaning, make it full. In other words, make it more complete. And for truly I say unto you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law, until all is accomplished. Whoever has annulled one of the least of these commandments, and teaches others to do the same, shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever keeps the teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So it's just like, well, Jesus said it himself.
He said it himself. I mean, he laid it out very quite plainly, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yep. And not one jot or tittle is going to pass away from this until heaven and earth pass away. If you looked outside, I think when I was out this morning, and it was still there.
Well, you can look inside too.
Yeah.
It's part of it.
Yep.
I don't know. But isn't that term fulfill when he used it? Doesn't that mean the regular way that they say, "I keep the law"? I've come to keep it.
Yeah, and
Isn't
let's
it
go.
the
If
same
we
word?
go to the other one, I did not come to destroy the law, or abolish the law. And that literally means destroy it. He didn't come to destroy it. He came to fulfill it. He came to bring it to fuller meaning, so you'll understand what's going on, right?
Because the reason he made it more full is because the fact is he was the Messiah, the Lamb of God, who was going to take away the sins of the world. He was going to become the sacrifice for all man's sin.
See, and what Jeff just said, he's going to take away the sins of the world. So when he said it's finished, he was saying all this sacrifice stuff you guys have been doing for 2,500 years is done. And what'd they do? They kept sacrificing. Until when? Until 70 AD. And the Romans came and took down the thing where they sacrificed stuff. That was an abomination, you guys. Can you think of this? I've never said this before. The temple of the Lord became an abomination to him.
It did, absolutely it did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are harsh words, and I hope that translated well. Did you hear me? Does that trans? What they did, because he said it's done, and he's hanging on the cross 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He said it is finished. He's talking about the sacrificial system. It's done. There's no more payment for any other kind of sin. Nobody else can make a payment for sin after this. The second. It's done. It's finished. It's over. It's done. And they went on, they kept on sacrificing daily. Let's just add one into the, let's add a sacrifice in for the Emperor of Rome, just as for good measure, and because he demands it. Okay. That's worshiping the Emperor of Rome, I tell you. Okay? That's an abomination. The whole thing became an abomination, and just like Daniel said, the people, the prince are gonna come, Daniel 9:27, and they took the whole thing down. They burned it right down to the ground.
Happened twice.
And there have not been sacrifices done since then. Since 70 AD. Happened
Well,
Yeah.
Solomon's temple became an abomination too.
in, yeah, so, yeah,
It came
yeah,
down.
it came
And
down.
then they had another chance in them.
No, it's all there in the prophets, you know? So when Yeshua comes along, there's not another. He said, I'm gonna do it one time. You gonna believe it or not? Right, Angie? He said, now when you take communion, when you eat the bread and drink the wine, do this in remembrance for what I've done for you, right? Okay, go ahead.
The other thing is that the Holy of Holies was no longer Holy of Holies because it split the
That was empty anyway. He was just showing them, look, it's
yeah,
empty.
it split it down and showed that it was empty.
It was it was a whitewashed
And before that,
thing.
the little thing that they tied around the goats were turning white until Jesus
Right.
died, and then they didn't.
Right.
They didn't turn again.
Right, right. So we're all looking at this from the wrong angle, from the wrong end of the telescope. Yes, ma'am.
And Daniel 9:27,
Yeah.
that's what Jesus was doing.
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
He shall confirm a covenant with many. That's what he was doing. He was
Yeah.
confirming the covenant.
Yes.
He wasn't starting, yeah, we have a new covenant because it's within us.
It's a renewed
It's a
covenant.
renewed covenant, more complete,
Right.
but it's the
Fulfilled.
same covenant.
What we have now is a covenant fulfilled.
Yeah.
So all these sacrifices that are in Deuteronomy that we'll read about, they've been fulfilled in Yeshua, so we don't do them. Okay? Right? Right, Joel?
Right.
Right. Everybody's looking through the wrong end of the telescope. Nobody laughed, nobody got it.
You were talking.
Did you get it? You got it, all right.
Oh, yeah.
I got it.
All right. It's time for both Christians and Jews to turn things around and have a different view. Closer look, maybe.
Have the Jews ever decided to go back to the sacrifices?
Oh, they can't wait. I mean,
They want-
not all of
they wanna
them.
build-
Most Jews of the land, but the religious Jews, they can't wait. The whole Temple Institute is all built around that. They've been practicing out in the desert, sacrificing. They've been practicing. They've been sacrificing animals. They just want to put the altar up on top of the Temple Mount. What's wrong with that?
God will not share his glory with anyone.
No, that's not going to happen.
They're just, what is the word I'm looking for? I've had it on my tip of the tongue, but they're denying the sacrifice that Jesus did.
Oh, yeah.
His precious blood,
Yeah.
you know?
That when we accept Jesus, that's what we're accepting. You know, when in our Mrs. Thompson's 5th grade Sunday school class, when you want to accept Jesus into your heart, we're really accepting the finished work that he did on the cross, right? Because that's what we're accepting. Right. All right. Teshuvah. He's just waiting for us to turn things around anyway. So, okay. So, the rising prophet among you. Don't listen to the guy who says, let us go after other gods. Don't do that, which you have not known. Didn't some of the guys say, isn't this Jesus? Isn't this the guy from Nazareth? Did they know who he was? Yes, they knew who he was. They couldn't accept the fact that he was from God, I guess. You shall not listen to the words of the prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God is testing you, whether you will love him with all your heart and with all your soul. Does that not sound like the Shema that we do every week? Yes, it does. Okay, it's a hearing test. It's a listening test. It's testing your hearing. Yeshua said, you guys have a really fine way of rejecting the commandment of God in order to establish your own tradition. You can't teach one law and do another. You can't teach one law and do another. So do we need to have our hearing checked sometimes? Okay? Let's just look at this. Somebody look up these are all in Deuteronomy, 4:1, 5:1, and 6:3. Let's tell me what you get. Who's got it? In 4:1, who's got it?
I do.
Okay, 4:1.
Hear now, O Israel, the decrees and law I am about to teach you. Follow them so that you may live and may go and take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your father, is giving you.
Okay, hear, O Israel, there's one. How about 5:1?
And Moses called all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments which I speak in your hearing today, that you may learn them and be careful to observe them.
Okay, and Vicki told me last week that word "oh," when we see that, it's like the word "reah," which is the name of this portion. It means behold, it means look, see. Look, see, okay. Who's got the other next 6:3?
Therefore listen, Israel, and take care to obey, so that things will go well with you, and so that you will increase greatly. As Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, promised you by giving you a land flowing with milk and honey.
Wow. Okay. Those are 3 really good examples of Shema, of listening. Listen, so it's going to go well with you. And he tells them, this is the covenant. This is the covenant. Okay? All right. 6 little words. You shall walk after the Lord your God, to fear him and to keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and you shall hold fast to him. And I gave you those 6 words in Hebrew there. Yalak, Yireh, Shamar, Shema, Abad, Davak. Okay? Hold fast. We'll get back to that in just a minute. Saved by grace. If we really do hear and believe the word of God to be true, then our behavior will reflect. Will reflect it. Obedience is a result of our faith and the evidence that we have of our faith. So if you were to be put on trial and they say, is there any evidence that you're a believer? You know, only thing you can do is point to the Shema. I'm hearing what the word says, and I'm trying to do what the word says.
So we're taking a stand.
Take
because
this.
the truth is at stake.
You betcha. The truth is at stake. It's well put. The truth is at stake. If our behavior reflected our belief, then the fruit that we produced would be in keeping with God's words and his instruction. And this God, the Jewish people don't have any excuses, nor do the Christians have any excuses. I mean, really, but it comes right down to that. God did not hide the Messiah from the Jews. Yeshua even said that. I did all this stuff out in plain sight. I didn't do anything in hiding. He even said that when he was on trial.
Well, plus he said all the prophets, Daniel nailed it to the day. I mean, he didn't hide
Here I
anything.
am. They told you when I was coming. You knew when I was coming.
That's right.
Right? If your brother, your son, your daughter, your wife, your friend, I don't care. They all say, let's go serve another God. Don't go. If corrupt men in your city say, let's go serve other gods, inquire diligently. Okay? This is like not up for discussion even. How important is it to be able to distinguish between what is truth and what is corrupt? How important is that? Maybe. How important is it to be able to distinguish between truth and tradition of man-made religions? This is by the time of Yeshua, the Jewish leadership was so corrupt and so far into their oral laws of man-made traditions that they had given them that had given them power. They had great power, and they had great job security. They brought in false allegations against Yeshua just to keep their jobs. Okay, this is really well. Deuteronomy chapter 13, the words that Steve just read to us. It's a very strong passage, and essentially God was telling the Israelites that they should have absolutely no tolerance of false teachers. In fact, death was the recommended punishment. If someone who rises up within the Israelites tries to mislead the people. false prophets today are going to have a big, they're going to have a big, I wouldn't want to be one. I don't think I'd want to be one, Jeanette. I just don't think I'd want to be one. These people had known God. They saw his power in Yeshua, yet they were still trying to turn their kinsmen away from the truth. Remember Yeshua standing there on trial, he asked, was it Herod or Pilate? He said, they said, what is, one of them, Herod or Pilate, said, what is truth? Really? What is truth? You remember that? Yeah. And he stood there and didn't say anything. He just stood there looking at him.
You know,
When truth is standing there looking at you right in the eye and you reject it, oh my goodness.
they couldn't really judge him and have him executed, Yeshua, on blasphemy, so they got him on treason.
Yeah, hang on. Well, that's exactly where we're going here. Okay? So false charges at Yeshua's trials, and he had two of them, one at 2 o'clock in the morning and one at 5 o'clock in the morning. How sharp are you at either one of those times? The Jewish court, the Sanhedrin, corruptly switched the charges from a perceived threat that Jerusalem's temple would be destroyed to blasphemy. That's it, okay? And then after the trial, the Sanhedrin again changed the charges before they were to present their case in front of the Roman authorities. Instead of telling Pontius Pilate that they had charged Yeshua with blasphemy, because Pilate wouldn't care. What would Pilate care if they charged somebody with blasphemy? He wouldn't. They stated that it was treason. Luke 23, 1-3, and John 19:12, and they conveniently switched charges because treason, unlike blasphemy, was a Roman crime. And accusing our Savior of breaking Roman law increased their chances that they would have him executed.
They said
the death penalty.
that they did it in the middle of the night like that, so that any people that would be awake
It would object. Yeah.
they wouldn't object.
Yeah. Just shh, keep this quiet. We're gonna. Jesus didn't do anything in secret. They were doing stuff in secret, weren't they? The Sanhedrin was doing a whole bunch of stuff in secret. Okay, so Yeshua spoke truth, and Jews acted corruptly. I've spoken openly to the world, Yeshua replied. I always taught in the synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I did nothing in secret. That was his only testimony. And this is what God hates. This is out of Proverbs, I think. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood. He hates this. A heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift to running evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among the brethren. The Sanhedrin were guilty of all of these things. Mm-hmm. Right?
Would that be better if it said Sanhedrin acted corruptly up there?
Well, the Jews were the Sanhedrin.
Yeah, but not all.
Yeah, well, the Jews were the guys in charge of the temple. They were the Jews. The other people were the people of the land. I'm not kidding. When you say Jews, when you're talking biblical Jews, you're talking people on the Temple Mount that are in charge. You're talking leadership. So that was the title for the Jews. It really was, Joe.
So are you saying,
And we've got it now. Anybody that's Jewish is a Jew. Yeah.
no, are you saying both Pharisees and Sadducees were titled Jews?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yep.
The Sanhedrin was the 70.
Yep. Yep. They were the court. And they sat as a court. They were like the legislature of the thing. And they were the. And it was mostly the Jews that they had big problems with. The people of the land that were out there feeding their sheep, they didn't have trouble with them. They didn't cause trouble. Okay, they were the people of the land. That makes sense?
So is it the people in the city you're saying that were Jewish?
No, I'm just saying that. See, here we have a problem with the title, and
Yeah.
so you could just put this on the back shelf. But when you see the word Jews in the Bible, most of the time, we're talking about the people that are in the leadership at the temple. Okay, the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the Sanhedrin, the leadership in the country. They're mostly Levitical or Judah.
Yeah, because most of the people in the city really love Jesus.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and we kind of smeared that word Jews out like peanut butter.
Well, it's supposed to mean the tribe of Judah. Anyone who's
People from the tribe of Judah.
genetically or
Right.
practicing.
But they were. It was a pejorative term. It was first used in Babylon, and it was a pejorative term. Those Jews. They were talking about the leadership. They were talking about the leadership, and it just stuck, and it just kind of spread throughout all the people. Okay? Otherwise, they're the people from Judah, from the house of Judah. That make sense?
That makes sense. Now,
Sometimes it's really hard.
Zippy, does that make sense to you or no?
Yes.
Yes? No? No?
You caught me talking.
Oh, okay.
She was filling her water and I broke my train.
Okay.
Following.
Okay.
But you know, it seems like, you know, many times it's, even today, we have a differentiation between the Jews who are in a land who have a sincere purpose to see peace in the land, and then you got the other part, you got the probably, I want to say, the underlying government of the country's got a different agenda, who belongs to the cabal of the world, basically. But you got this, so you got to look at this. It kind of seems like the same thing has gone on back then as today.
It is today, yes.
Yeah. And so there's an underlying tone that when we say Jews, we kind of look at all Jews in a big sense, where that's really not the case.
So
It's
keep
the
in mind when
ruler.
you say the word Jews, you're using a pejorative term. Okay? If you say the Jewish people, that's something different.
Yeah.
Those are the people from Judah.
Jewish leaders.
Yeah, Jewish leaders. Yeah, but when you say the Jews, that's really, biblically, that's what it means. It's a pejorative term. Okay? The Jewish people, that's something different.
Tribe of Judah.
The tribe of Judah. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You kind of look this up a little bit, but it's I'm telling you, that's what's there. Okay. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with. I don't know. I'll just keep going. Okay.
Well, when you have that in mind and read the Gospels, you can see.
Yeah, you can see it. When
Say
you,
the Jews did this and
the Jews did that. It's not talking about the Jewish people of the land. It's talking about the leaders of the temple, the leadership people.
And then
Yes.
other times it says the house of Judah
Yes.
or the house of Israel.
Right. It's just it's the people.
Then you have to train.
We got it. All right. Yes.
Satan has done this to all of us, like he's done it to the Jews, because it's true the Jews started World War II because the Rothschilds are the ones that are bankers and they started it. But it's also true that the Jewish people were the ones that were put in the Holocaust.
There you
because-
go.
And so we've always had
Yeah.
two lines of Jews.
And that's probably what you were talking about
Two
earlier.
lines of
Okay.
Christianity.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay.
That's right.
That's right.
That's good.
That's good. Okay. So Paul, the apostle, Paul's pride was knocked to the ground and the work of his hands was stopped. Paul was a Jew.
He was he was a Jew.
Get it?
He was.
Get it? He was a Jew.
Yep.
Here, let me hold your coat while you kill these guys.
Yeah.
Right? He was
Yeah.
a Jew. All
He
right.
was a Pharisee of Pharisees.
He was a Pharisee of Pharisees, you know?
That's right.
And the attitude of his heart was changed, and the destination of his feet, where his feet was taken him, was altered. He met the truth on the way to Damascus, and he showed the truth, sowed the truth, and not discord among his brethren from then on. Because he was sowing discord big time. And God got a hold of him, and he changed his life, you know? God got a hold of Sonia and changed her life. Got a hold of Jeff and changed his life. Dolores and changed her life. He changes things, right? Right. Changes the direction of your feet are headed, right? Big time. Hallelujah. All right, back to these 6 little words because these are important. These 6 little words that you're there. Okay, that same slide. Now we're gonna give this a little bit of a twist. You're gonna have to look at the slide because I don't think I gave this to you. But okay, you shall walk after the Lord your God and fear Him and keep His commandments and obey His voice. You shall serve Him and hold fast to Him. Now I'm going to have one person. Sonia, I want you to read. Can you see this well enough to read that?
Yep.
Okay, and I want you to emphasize the words that are in bold. Okay, so listen listen with your ears. Shema. Listen to this and hear.
You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear Him and keep His commandments and obey His voice. You shall serve Him and hold fast to Him.
Okay, that gives you kind of a, just think about that. Let that settle for just a second. Okay? All right. Okay? You shall walk after Him, fear Him, and keep His commandments, and obey His voice, and serve Him, and hold fast to Him. All right? Now, the lady in the second purple purse, would you please read this, same words, we're just going to put an emphasis on a different group.
You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him and keep his commandments and obey his voice. You shall serve him and hold fast to him.
Wow. Same words, very same words, just a little different emphasis on the heart. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Can you see that? He's the Lord your God. Fear him. Keep his commandments. Obey his voice. Serve him. This makes it all about him, doesn't it? This is what you do, but you're doing it for him. Or to him, or for him.
Oh, that's neat.
That is neat. All right. If we do this, we won't miss him when he comes, and we'll recognize who in the world he is when he gets here. Okay? All right. So the Jews were so proud of their traditions that they didn't even realize they were in error. Now, I can do this because I used to own a store like this. I ran a store like this for 10 years. And it was probably a bunch of tradition stuff as well as getting information out, but regardless, traditions. It's a big word. So is this. Can you see that picture? This is a Jewish lady has a chicken on a leash. This is an Orthodox Jewish lady has a chicken on a leash.
She's in a foul mood.
She's in a
Don't string me along.
birds of a feather, you know. Don't get started. So there's a group, there's a sect of Jewish people over in Israel today that comes Yom Kippur, because they don't have an altar, they don't have a sacrificial system, they will take chickens. And there's this whole ritual, traditional ritual that they do with chickens. Day before Yom Kippur, they kill them, they take the head off them, so she's taking for the walk, she's probably walking to the rabbi, and he's going to cut the head off, and they're going to spray the blood of these chickens all around them. The men will have another rabbi beat them with whips on their back. Flagellate, is that what you call it?
Beat the men?
Beat the men.
Wow.
You know,
And they'll have another guy beat you. I don't want to go to Catholicism right yet. Beat you with it, you know, because he hasn't been good enough, or he's done something stupid. But he's paying for his sins because it's Yom Kippur, don't you know? And we got to have this sin thing taken care of. So I'm just going to beat you with this whip. And the blood of this chicken, because I don't have a lamb to bring anymore, is just going to absolve me of all my sins. Can you see how this gets crazy? This gets crazy. All right, just a minute. Let me keep going. I'll show you a couple another tradition. How about this? Have a chicken on a string. How about a bride on a string, on a leash?
What?
This is ultra orthodox stuff. This is some of the stuff that these people do is nuts.
I have a question. Is
Yes.
that her husband pulling her?
I don't probably,
Or
the rabbi. I don't
Maybe the
know.
rabbi, yeah.
Probably the rabbi. I don't know.
Okay.
It could
Is
be
there an
the,
explanation to what we're seeing
I don't
here?
know.
Okay.
I don't even want to go. You don't want to go there.
Okay, I'm sure.
They would read Moses out loud, but they would not practice what they read, opting instead for their own commandments and their traditions and their practices. Okay? Now, wait a minute. Opting instead for their own commandments and traditions and practices. Does that all sound like the church? Okay? Like religion? Like religion. Sounds a little bit like the church. Now, I don't mean to be mean, but I mean this is who we are. This is what we grew up in. This is what we know. These are our traditions. This and this.
Yeah.
It's all about law versus grace for Christians, because we don't want to have anything to do with the law. Because Paul told us, doggone it, in Galatians, law's been done away with. But he didn't. He didn't say that. That's misunderstanding Paul. Paul said that the law of sin and death has been done away with.
Yes,
Right? That's what's been done away with.
Yes.
Not the Torah.
that's true.
Not the Sabbath. Not God's holidays, holy days. But they haven't, he hasn't done any of those. Right?
Right.
You know, if you carry it to extremes, you can disobey all the 10 Commandments. Because that was part of the law.
That was part of, I know.
So,
But we're not under the law.
Point
You know, dumping up and up and up.
so how are you, I mean.
There's lots of Sunday school classes that must be taught this way.
Our judicial system is based on this.
Our country is based on this, yeah, but not on the traditions of what man has brought into it, is what I'm, that's what we're all saying.
Is the word law, is that a Greek word? Because I know one of the things I saw was that law really means God's instruction and his teachings. But
That's
then the word law was used, and you see how that changes?
In the Greek word, yeah, in the Greek word, they only have the word for logos, I think it is. Logos, right?
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of this stuff, like here, with the Jewish people, it's the rabbi and the rabbinical Judaism, that rabbinical sect of things that pass things down, and the rabbi said it, and that's talking note, and that's the fences of things that they built around the Torah instructions so that people wouldn't break them. And they just keep building a fence around it, and let's build another fence around it. And oh, for crying out loud, George broke that one last week, so let's figure out another fence we can build. And pretty soon they just got them locked in a cell and they can't do anything. That's why well, I'll get there in a minute. On Sabbath, you can't turn light on or off because they have built so many fences around this thing. You can't tear toilet paper, so on Friday afternoon, the wife is in there tearing sections of toilet paper off. And some sects of Judaism, well, you can't even go to the bathroom on Shabbat because that would be work. This is crazy. It is. That's crazy. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
And it's not in the Torah.
And that's not in the Torah. That's all what, say the word takinot. Takinot. That's the oral traditions that have been passed down by the rabbis to build things around so that they can't get out. They can't break the Torah. They can't bust through the sheet can't get out of the fold, if you will.
Sounds like tacky note. There's two things. Number one, there is grace in the Old Testament, so that's what we.
The whole book of the Old Testament is a book of grace, yes.
And the other thing is, grace and Jesus gives us salvation, but law gives us character, and that's what we're missing today is the character that the law builds into us. Because if you have character, you're not going to lie about your neighbor.
Right.
If you have a good character.
Right.
And
Follow these instructions, like Sonia was saying. Follow them, obey them, listen to them, search them out, write them on your own heart. So it will go well with you and your children. It's not that difficult, and it's not just black and white. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. It is about building your character and who you are and your relationship with God. You can't put a relationship all down in black and white on a list on a clipboard and say, okay, if I do these things, I have character. No, it's how you live your life, right? It's how you do things, right?
So one thing Yeshua was doing through his whole ministry is smashing through all these traditions, which is what made them all so mad at him.
Exactly.
Over and over and over, he was working a miracle on the Sabbath and healing,
telling the guy to pick up his mat. That was totally against rabbinic law to pick up your mat and carry it somewhere on Sabbath.
Yep.
It was totally against the law to get healed on Sabbath. Totally. It's totally against the law to walk through the wheat fields and break off wheat and eat it on Sabbath. You can't do that on Sabbath. Does that say that anywhere here? Did Moses write it? No. The rabbis put laws around that.
So he was smashing through all this stuff.
Today you can only go a Sabbath day's journey, okay? So they've done that and they've added to it. So now, I guess in certain places, I don't understand how they do this, but they'll take a string out and they'll pick it and they'll mark off so much space, and you can go that far. Well, if I do it again, then I can go that far too. And if I do it again, I can go that far. Pretty soon, I'm halfway to Cincinnati on a Sabbath day journey. but I've got a fence built around me. I mean, literally, they do this. They do this down in Texas, and some of these homeowners associations where they said, well, And they complain about that, that's why, because they got this crazy string, this crazy fence built around the neighborhood that the Jewish people have put up. That's, and it's called, it begins with an O, and I forget the word, what's it called?
There, I don't remember the name, but there is one in Boulder you can see.
There's one in Boulder you can see. That's how far you can go on the sand.
But it just.
That's man-made stuff, never intended by God. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to back up a little bit to the swinging of the chicken around the head. It's called caparot or whatever.
Okay.
And most Jews who go to synagogue every now and then, like rank and file Jews, not Orthodox,
Right.
would not have any knowledge at all
No.
that there was the cutting and the. Because I heard reference to caparot all the time, and I knew it was about the swinging of that chicken, but they
Yeah,
always.
Reformed
never-
Jewish people wouldn't know anything about that, no.
Yeah,
no.
some conservatives might be aware of it,
Yeah.
but I'm.
That's
I've
a very,
never heard of it.
that's very much in the ultra-Orthodox
Ultra-Orthodox.
family, but you gotta know that there's lots of different flavors, just like there's different
Yeah.
flavors of churches, Methodist and Presbyterian and Baptist, there's different flavors of
Yeah.
Judaism too. Somebody else have a hand? I'm sorry.
One of the things that we forget too is that, and the Christian church is forgetting, is that the Antichrist is called the lawless one.
Right.
So he is not.
Those are people without the Torah. Yep. Okay, so the dreamer, we got to move along here because I'm running out of time. 5. What am I doing here? Acid test of a prophet. It was his fidelity to the Mosaic law. If he led people away from it, civil authorities. And we're going to get in trouble time-wise here. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. There's no such thing as a set of instructions for the Jews and a set of instructions for Christians. Confused Christians, Moses was never intended for anyone other than the Jewish people. That's what they think.
It is what they give.
That is what they think. Okay? Moses wrote that there is one law of God for the native and for the sojourner and the alien who dwell with them. If you believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Torah is for you.
Yes.
It's your book. And don't serve other gods. Just because he doesn't, just because he does a sign and a wonder and says, "Come, let's follow this God." Don't follow him. Why? Very simple. Because there are no other gods. If you need to be a reminder of that, write that down. There are no other gods other than Yod He Vav He. Okay? Yahuwah is God and there is no other. Boom. Jews have added traditions. We've already talked about that. Christians have taken away. I'm just going to move right along here.
What do you mean by Moses and added sun god worship?
What? Oh, Christians have taken away Moses and added sun god worship.
How so?
How so?
Sunday.
Sunday. Church on Sunday. I mean, I don't. Okay, don't get yourself in trouble, Susan. I am not bashing Christians. I'm just talking about in the total of comparing Judaism and Christianity, how we've separated things out. Okay, and you haven't been with me long enough to know about we haven't studied the holidays yet with you. Okay, so you don't know that. But Christians and the Sabbath, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Seventh day is the Sabbath day, right? And Sunday is day one of the next week. Okay, and Christianity, thanks to Constantine, said we're going to worship on the venerable day of the sun, and it's a sun worship thing. Constantine has added a lot of things. Took a lot of things away from the people with the Hebrews, from the Torah, and he added a lot of things because they were Mithra, and it was a lot of sun worship in Rome, and they added a lot of things. They just kind of mixed it all up. So let's just have a goulash of this stuff, so we can kind of keep the empire together, okay? And that's what he did. And ever since then, and at the same time he was cutting things off and separating his empire from the Jewish people, because the Israel had given them so much trouble You're not going to have anything to do with the Jews. You can't study Torah. You will worship on Sunday. You will work on Saturday. You will, there was a whole bunch of stuff you will do and you won't do, and that all came to us with compliments of Constantine. Love Constantine. He wrote a note and everything. He wrote a book. Just a minute. And I haven't got enough time to explore this, but we will in the next weeks ahead in these next chapters, because we'll go into the holidays, because it's part of the covenant, God's holidays, and God's holidays don't include the stuff that over here the Christianity is added to. Okay, does that make sense?
I'll continue listening.
You'll continue listening. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that very much.
Excuse me. So the Talmud is man-made Jewish, written by Jews, man-made traditions, right?
Talmud, yes, and opinions on from the Jewish rabbis, and the Talmud even states that if God Himself even came and sat down at the table with us, He wouldn't have any more say so, because He gave it to us, and by golly, we're going to decide what's right, and that's written right into the Talmud.
Because I'm not familiar with.
That's written right, yeah.
Okay,
We don't want to. Well, that's one reason why we don't study the Talmud. We don't study. Well, we don't study it. We make reference to it,
Right.
and there's some good. Not everything is bad, but we don't elevate that above the Bible. This is God's word. This is God's word right here. We can know God from this book right here. Okay. Christians know God from this. Listen to me very carefully, and Steve, this is for you. So don't cross your arms to be okay. You're not listening. This is our book, okay? This is the book. The old and the new together. The old and the new together, and they go together beautifully. One is kind of a commentary on the Old. The New Testament is commentary on the Old Testament, and that's why I encourage people to rip out the page between the Old Testament and the one that says the New Testament, because it's just a continuing revelation of the Old Testament. And they go together. They don't cancel each other out. They explain each other, and they go together beautifully, because this is God's family. We're all God's family. And I don't care if you were raised in a Jewish synagogue or you're raised in a Catholic church. It doesn't matter. When you come together, people can sit in the same room and worship the same God.
Because I believe that the Old and the New Testament were given by inspiration of God, and they only constitute the divine rule of Christian faith and practice.
Absolutely. I have total agreement with you. Somebody give that guy a high five.
Because they got that saying that goes that the old is the new, the old is the new concealed. In other words, it's talking about what's going to be coming yet to come. And as far as like Yeshua, Christ is coming into the world to die for his sin. So the old is the new concealed, and the new is the old revealed.
That's exactly right. Yes.
So maybe
Give him a five.
Give him a high five. That's good. That's good. Because to do anything else is what people get in trouble with. We start doing what's right in our own eyes. And what this guy says, I'm going to do what he, that veers away from these two books, Old Testament and New Testament. Bonnie?
What is interesting too is there's 39 books in the Old Testament, 27 in the New, and it has been inspired and written by over 60 authors, I think, and from different times.
Yeah,
different
and they all
eras.
fit together.
And they
Yeah.
all point to
Okay, I'm going to quit picking on people. I'm going to keep going here. Let's move across here a little bit. Okay. What's so obvious, Susan? Seat of Moses. Okay, so what happened? They would sit in the synagogues, and this was called the seat of Moses, and they would read from the Torah, and it would be da 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 da. They would read only what Moses wrote, and this is what Yeshua said to do. But afterward, they did not. They did their own traditions. Okay, saying and not doing makes a hypocrite, and it's man's made religion. By this we know that we love the children of God when we love God and obey His commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments. Okay. When they got off the seat of Moses and they would leave the synagogue, then they'd start putting in all these fenced-in rules and laws. So there it is. when Moses got to be contrary to their own stuff. How many times in recent weeks have we heard about believing and obeying God's commandment, his precepts and his statutes several times, about the blessing if we do and the curse, and there's a curse if we don't. Why would we think it would be any different today? Okay, so what we create a mess, and then just like this. If you ever, you ever walk in the room and it looks like that. My bedroom kind of looks like that right now. But anyway, Judaism has different rabbis that their students follow, and most Jewish studies are from Jewish books outside of the Torah. Okay, they're from the Mishnah, the Talmud, the this, the that, the Zohar, and all that stuff. But Torah teaches don't believe anything that goes against Moses. That's what the Torah teaches. And New Testament teachers teach that Jesus came to do away with the law, and they began a new religion called Christianity. They say Paul's letters teach that the law was done away with, and it's not true. Yeshua said not one jot or one tittle will be left out. And mostly what we have today is this kind of a conglomerated, messy room. We can only, remember this? Remember this one? Remember this? Watch this for just a second. We can't always rely on what we see, just like you don't want to be fooled. Watch what happens. Just a minute, here it comes. What? I know. I'm not touching anything. I'm not touching anything.
See, look at
Boom.
the number of people, right? Is what you're looking at.
I don't know.
Yeah, because it goes from
Picture
12
drive
to
you crazy. Okay. All right, so we're going to move ahead here because I want to. You know what we're gonna do? Oh my goodness, we have an entire another chapter to go. We're going to stop here today because it's after 1 o'clock. And well, you guys, thank you for your comments today. That was wonderful. It was a good discussion. It was a good discussion, and we'll pick up here next week. And we're going to talk about. Oh, I'm just going to no. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
No. We're gonna. You know what? You're gonna give me 7 more minutes. I can name this tune in 7 minutes, and we're not gonna read it. We're just gonna be about the tithe. I'm just gonna talk about it, about tithing. Okay? Do's and don'ts. These are an abomination. These are disgusting. Yod He Vav He. Idolatry, child sacrifice, divination, sorcery, witchcraft, casting spells, channeling spirits, consulting the dead. Don't do that. Those are an abomination. And, oh yeah, eating unclean animals. That is too. Here. We're not going to, we know about clean meats and so forth. We're not going to talk about that. I have an entire thing on that. We're not going to talk about that either, but we're going to get to the tithe. Okay, there are 3 tithes. Count these. And 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's 3 tithes in the Bible. And I'm just going to do this, and we'll kind of review this next week. But the first one is called the Levite tithe for the support of the Levite. It comes from the fields and the vineyards and the orchards, and they're measured off, and they're given to the Levites every year. The tithe is how much? 10%. Okay. This is the one I want to get to. Tithe number 2. Did you know it's called, so Rishon is 1. Maser Rishon, the first tithe, number 1. Tithe number 2 is the Maser Shani. The Israelite was to put 1/10 of his crop, or his money equivalent, and to spend it on themselves.
Amen.
Yes, and enjoy it.
And enjoy it, yes, when they come up to worship Jerusalem. Yeah, right? Right, Maria?
Yeah.
Yep. Every year. They're to sit and to eat and rejoice with what God has given you.
Vacation
Every
fund.
year. 10%? 10% would go to the, whatever, the Levi, the church, whatever. 10% plus 10% is how much? 20%. We're beyond 10% here already. 10% for that, 10% for you. Say 10% for me. 10% for you to go and enjoy. You're supposed to put that away in a savings account so that you can,
Make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem.
make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem or whatever, right? And then watch this one. There's a third tithe. Don't get scared. This one is for the Levite, the sojourners, the orphans, and the widows. Every 3rd year and 6th year. Okay? So the 3rd year, because it's introducing the Shemitah. We'll get into this more next week. But it's introducing the Shemitah year. So in the 3rd year and the 6th year, they're to give another 10%. So does this make sense? Well, and we'll talk about this more next year. But 20%, 80%, 20%, 80%, 20, 80, 20, 80, 20, 80. 1st year, 2nd year, 4th year, 5th year, 7th year. In the 3rd year and the 6th year, you're supposed to give an extra amount so that it will go well with you and your children. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is all tucking this into the God's 7. Like we think dozen, God thinks 7. Shemitah. Okay? So that at the end of every 7 years, everything can be released and debts will be forgiven and things will be returned back to the proper owner and all that kind of thing. That's how that happens, and it's all tied up with the tithe. See, we think we're not under the law anymore. Da-da-da-da-da-da. If you haven't been putting 10% in a savings account to spend on for your own little self to go and have a good time and to enjoy the Lord somewhere, shame on you. Does that make sense? Ta-da. There you go. All right, so that's all I have to say about that. We've already done the bread and the wine. I used the 10 minutes for the bread and the wine. Here we go. We've already done that.
Yep.
So you want to do the